What is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to Season 3, Episode 33, maybe 34 of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Oslin in the Void, Will Updike in his apartment. We're going to talk kind of the ramifications of what happened in that Rockets game, the Kawhi article that came out from La Murray today, as well as just a look at the tense standings in the Western Conference. If you're watching us, thank you so much. If you'd like to subscribe and watch us, you can do that at youtube.com/@Clippers Podcast. And you can listen to us anywhere you find pods. Before we get into all that, if you're watching this, you're definitely wondering, Adam, how are you doing in wherever you are, which could be anywhere.
And why are you there?
Totally fine. Everything's good, guys. What do you mean? So I'm not allowed to talk as loud as I typically do for a podcast or a vodcast. And so I went across the street and I'm in my parked car near a park in an undisclosed location in Burbank. Let's try to get through this right now as the neighbors have complained about me a few different times.
I think it's more on the neighbors, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's your fault at all, would be how I feel about it.
Well, there's multiple of them and only one of me.
Will, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, we got pretty
no
good
elaboration.
and potting from the car. We have a wide spectrum. Hope everyone's okay. I'm feeling a little under the weather. There's a bug going around. We'll get into all the health stuff later. We know you come here for our health tips, but we wanted to talk about the game against the Rockets last night, which I did feel was winnable despite the injuries. As that game went on, it felt like there was chances for the Clippers to make something happen. But this game started with no James Harden, no Terrence Mann, who is out long term. Amir hurt his shoulder in warmups. And then the Clippers lost Derrick Jones Jr. after 12 minutes due to some hamstring tightness. So, well, I have a what went well, what went wrong section, but if you guys don't mind, I think we can just jump right into the what went wrong. Will, what's your level of concern for these injuries that are popping up right now?
Well, I mean, I anytime I hear hamstring, I'm immediately sort of on edge. I guess tightness is certainly just one thing. That's not a full blown injury yet, but something like this was bound to happen. You know, with with how thin not only the margins are, but the rotation is. You're gonna miss some guys. I guess in what went right while talking about what went wrong, at least this one was still like within an arm's reach. Because
Totally.
if you were to look at this injury report coming into this, you'd be like, all right, well, there's no shot. Like, I don't need to turn the TV on for this one.
Turn his TV off is what you're saying.
Yes.
And with their schedule, they played so many games. They had the most, one-day rests of like any team up until this point. Adam, where are you at? Is this just maybe they just held Derrick Jones Jr. out because like we have so much rest? Let's just kind of let this one go, let him get fully good. They don't play again until Friday. What's your level of concern with these injuries popping up?
Well, we just didn't really get anything specific post-game from Coach Slew about Amir Coffey or Derrick Jones Jr.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're not significant injuries. I'm hoping that's the case. And it was just one of those games where Coach Slew called it, they got some knickknacks. They got some some little things going on right now. And that's how he kind of described what was going on with James Harden. At least he said that to Carlo on the pregame show. And so I think this is more the same, where if you're dinged up at all, just stay out so you don't exacerbate the injury, make it any worse, because you got 4 days off after this, and we have a chance to get healthy and get right and hopefully get Kawhi Leonard back a little bit. More on that in a little bit here. But I think it was just them being overly cautious. That's my guess. And yeah, I felt like they competed and their identity stayed intact, even with all the guys missing in that game.
Totally. The Amir one was the weirdest because it was just like he hurt his shoulder in warmups. And you're kind of like, okay. I don't know how that
He
exactly
dunked
happens.
too hard, man.
Right. Like, I'm like, were they doing the pregame dunk contest and it went awry? I don't know. But they lost, for a team lacking size and three-point shooting, they lost two guys who brought both those things. But this team still fought. Chris Dunn was insane. 5 steals. Like, we still forced turnovers. And they only turned the ball over 7 times against the Rockets. which is like gotta be one of the lower times that that's happened for a team playing the Rockets this season.
I was told post-game by a guy that, why won't you talk about Ivica Zubac? You're such an apologist. Talk about all the turnovers he had. So I go to the box score. He had 0.
Come on, man. Those numbers lie, dude. Everyone knows.
How many spiritual turnovers, though? You know, it's kind of like a screen assist, but it's more of a vibe-based turnover.
The body language turnovers.
There was just one stretch that kind of lost on that game, and it was the end of the second quarter with that 12-2 run by the Houston Rockets, where they just had a couple minutes where they weren't as focused, they weren't as tight out there, they weren't as connected, and that really was the game.
It felt kind of like, because they were down FFV and Eason. They weren't in there. So it almost felt like that was kind of when, because Udoka's been furious at the Rockets, is what the broadcast was telling us, right? Like he called the team out for being soft, like all this stuff. I wonder if part of that was them being like, all right, we'll decide to play better than the Clippers are now. Because Adam, you've talked about that. Sometimes it feels like teams that are maybe a little better on paper can kind of sometimes decide to like lean. But we had that random Bones Highland heater that almost like won this game for us, which opened up. Bones had 22 points, 5 of 10 from 3. Don't think it's a stretch to say it's by far the best he's looked all season for the Clippers.
There's a connection between him getting real minutes and not just garbage time, and Bones seemingly caring more when he's not just getting throwaway minutes out there.
That's crazy, Adam. It got the debate going on Clippers Twitter. And I don't know if this is, I have my own thoughts on if it should happen, but you got to imagine that the chances of Bones Highland taking KPJ's spot in the rotation are pretty damn low. And that's not a knock on Bones. It was a great performance, but like
near nil, man. It's near nil. Like
and I'm not crazy pro KPJ. This is just in the hierarchy of how.
I mean, this is just for anyone who has eyes and has been watching the season. Like KPJ is cemented in this rotation. Bones is not. I mean, Bones could have a 40-point game, and I still don't think I don't even know if he's a step closer to being in the rotation. It's just I mean, I'm not saying that he's necessarily just getting a bad role. You know, we know that there have been issues internally. We know that he has not quite developed in the way that they were hoping him to, as like a personality and on-court fit. He hasn't developed any level of consistency, which when you're talking about KPJ's consistency being miles ahead of yours, you have an issue. Like you have an issue trying to get into this rotation. So I love what Bones is doing. Would love for the skeleton key to open a few locks, get the Clippers out of a few jams. I don't see it happening in any sort of regular way with any sort of or any sort of rotation minutes being rewarded because of this performance.
Bones is in a darker place with this coaching staff than I am currently. There's a better chance I could actually do a podcast from my place than Bones Highland starts getting consistent minutes out there. I think the writing's on the wall. I wouldn't be shocked if by December 15th or around there, when more contracts open up, as we have talked about, that Bones Highland and PJ Tucker get moved. And I mean, KPJ played the most minutes of anybody out there last night. He played 37. He got the start without James Harden, something I thought would happen, but it's still because of the size with KPJ and just him having the advantage there physically and being a better rebounder and just defender. A better defender.
Like, that's what gets me is I'm like, guys, like, let's not pretend that Bones is doing anything other than putting the ball in the hoop. Great scoring, but like
all he does is catch touchdowns.
and like, I mean, that that has been like kind of our biggest complaint really on KPJ, right? Like he's kind of a ball stopper. He's really out there looking for his own shot. But on the plus side, he was still a passable defender, even in his remarkably inconsistent games. I don't get how you don't know that being with this team for a couple of years, but if you can't provide that floor, it's a very difficult sort of road to hoe to get you rotation minutes.
And I think Coach Lou may be looking at KPJ as kind of a project where he can get more out of him than anybody else has before. There's, I don't know, maybe some pride there of being able to coach this guy up and get more out of his game
I
than
can see
anybody
that.
else has. And there's a lot of potential there. His ceiling is higher than Bones Highlands. Bones is what's funny is last night, Bones was actually playing off the ball a little bit more. A lot of
Yeah.
those threes were catch and shoot threes from him, which is a nice role for him. But how do you do that in today's NBA with a guy that small if he's not going to be the point guard, if he's just going to be a catch and shoot guy?
Or defend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. KPJ, I mean, yeah, he played the most minutes, but I mean, it was, and this kind of is like the epitome of Bones' Clippers tenure, right? It's that thing where every once in a while there's this spike where you're like, whoa, awesome. And then when he gets the consistent minutes, as Will, you talked about, it's, you look at the box scores and it's like 1 for 8, 7 for 12, 2 for 12. Like it's just all over the place consistency wise.
I just don't know. When has he ever gotten consistent minutes with the Clippers?
I mean, what literally is it? Those
No,
6
that's very
games he
true.
started
That's very true.
before
But
Russ came over.
I think that has to be indicative too of what's happening like behind the scenes, what's happening at practice. What you know what I mean? Like, because for him to not even get consistent like backup minutes, I think is, it's puzzling. I feel like there's got to be more to the factor there than what we've seen on the court.
Yeah, there's definitely the attitude issues from the Denver Nuggets. That baggage maybe has carried over because I don't know what else it could be. Now, they did give him the backup job before they brought in James Harden last season.
Yeah,
And he
that's
had
what I mean.
4 games where he was really good off the bench, and then it was over. He was out of the rotation.
It's weird. It's gonna be. There's the December 15th trade deadline, and then there's guys who are eligible to be traded on January 15th as well too. So I think we looked at the December 15th list of people a couple episodes ago. Not a very sexy list. Not even from like a depth like maybe you get this guy to fill in the back end of the bench. Not the most scintillating of possible ads, but
To me, the goal is just get rid of 2 for 1. That's the goal, to open up a roster spot so you can add Jordan Miller for the whole season.
Yeah. Oh, because he's still not even on the full-time contract. What do we think of Jordan Miller last night?
I thought he should have gotten the ball more, honestly. He had 10 points in the first half. He looked really good in that second quarter. And when he came back in the second half, I don't think he touched the basketball for 3 or 4 minutes. I don't think they even got him the ball once. And then they did. They made a concerted effort to. He scored one more bucket, but kind of felt like they could have used more from him. They could have tried to feature him more with all the guys being out in that game. When I heard Derrick Jones Jr. was out, I thought, here we go. Jordan Miller's going to get up 20 shots tonight. Got up 12. Not nothing, but I think they could have used more from Jordan Miller, and they probably should have gotten the ball to Ivica Zubac even more.
Yeah, you look at that like 12 points in 32 minutes, and you're kind of like, meh, But then you look at his actual field goal attempts, and he was remarkably efficient when he was actually getting the damn ball. So I agree with that. I mean, he definitely could have used some more attempts, but I do like that he kicked in 6 rebounds on a night where we got our asses kicked on the boards, despite the other team being more effective from both the field and from 3. So one of those things that is going to be a Clippers loss. But yeah, I agree. He needs more opportunities, especially like I'm always up for testing what are the boundaries of this efficiency, right? How greedy can we get with it shot wise until we start to see a deviation? Because I'm ready to get a little greedy with it with Jordan Miller and his attempts.
You got to see where it goes, right? Like that's a great call, man. Like let's see what happens. A note, because I think later in the game, I wouldn't be surprised if there was just some fatigue. This stats from Chomer. He said Jordan Miller played 14 minutes and 34 seconds straight between the first and second quarters, which just for a guy who NBA level basketball, that's a lot of basketball to play straight. So I'm wondering if there was just maybe, not excusing it, because I do agree there should have been maybe some more shots given to him. But that's a lot of straight minutes. That's almost a Trez shift for a guy who's getting his first year of NBA minutes.
Well, I'll say this. When they took him out there is when the run happened by the Houston Rockets at the end of the second quarter. That's when they took Jordan Miller out. KPJ gave up a 3 and then from Jalen Green, who also got an easy one in transition, and they kind of got ambushed. In 3 minutes, that was the game because the Clippers were right there battling. You look at the final score, they lose by 11, and there's that 12-0 run that ended up being a 12-2 run as Ivica Zubac had that tip in to end the first half. But it was just them being a little bit unfocused for a couple of minutes there. That was enough to lose the game.
That's the thin margins. That's what we talk about on this podcast. One last thing before we get into the La Murray stuff on Kawhi. Norm had a rough outing. We didn't need a rough outing from Norm last night, given everyone who was out, but it's his first bad game in a minute. He's still probably getting his legs underneath him a little bit from the hamstring injury, no pun intended. But I don't know. What's your not concerned? That's kind of where I'm at about this.
What's that song, the theme song from Scrubs?
Oh, man.
Damn, I should know this.
But you know the song. You know how it goes.
If you sing it, I will.
Yeah, I'm like,
I thought you guys would fill in the blanks. It's the one where it's like, I can't do this all on my own. I'm no Superman.
Yeah, okay, got it.
That's Norm Powell right now, okay? I'm not worried. He can't do it all on his own. He's no Superman.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to be fine. He's Norm.
Well, I would say in the way that the janitor was JD's foil and kryptonite,
oh no,
that's who the Houston Rockets have been for Norman Powell. Okay. In all 3 games, he has gotten clamped by them. And that's not, out of the ordinary. Houston has the second best defense. They're the number 1 rebounding team, and they killed the Clippers in both those areas. But Norman Powell has had 3 of his worst games of the season, maybe his 3 worst games against the Houston Rockets. I think he was 1 of 8 from 3 last night.
Yeah.
And they've just done a great job of shutting him down.
Yeah, 1 of 8 from 3. Another guy who only made 1 3, which bummed me out. Chris Dunn hit his first 3, and I was like, yes, it's going to be one of those nights. Missed the other 4, I believe, that he took. But credit to Chris Dunn. He was playing through some kind of illness recovery, had a career high in steals, was a beast in that first quarter. And then took a chance to talk to some G League guys who came up to him after his locker. I saw a tweet from one of them. They were just talking about basketball and stuff like that.
For an hour. Cool. After playing in a game while being sick, the man took a full hour out of his schedule. I just think it goes to show. I do think this locker room is in the best place that it's been in probably 5 years. It's been a long time since we've had a what appears to be a functional locker room like this.
Yeah, a real good vibe in the locker room.
I thought Dunn was really good to start the third quarter, too, when the Clippers kept turning over Houston. He had, I want to say, at least 2 of his 5 steals early in that third quarter. It's unfortunate that his shot has fallen off a cliff recently. I want to say he's somewhere around 13 for his last 50 from 3. Damn. When he started off shooting 45%, I think the first 10 games or so of the season. We knew there'd be some regression. Ooh. It has come fast and swift.
He's career low 30s guy, 33.
Yeah. But the last 2 years, it's only 88 games, I think, with the Utah Jazz. He shot somewhere around 40%, but you're talking a little over 100 attempts. So,
yeah, he's at 32% right now. Yeah, man, 1 for 5 last night, 0 for 3, 1 for 2, 0 for 2, 0 for 2, 0 for 1, 0 for 2. Yeah, not a box score merchant is Chris Dunn, but he's a wonderful glue guy and a great defender. And him and Nico were great last night, just on the defensive end. So.
I got all these people upset last night that the Clippers played too small. And it's yeah, they lost all their wings except Nico, guys.
Everyone was hurt.
Not the time to criticize Lou for playing 4 guards.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Ty Lue was supposed to do there other than ask a tall guy from the
Suit
crowd
up.
to play. Yeah, we need size and shooting. Ty Lue, player coach. All right, coming up, let us know what you thought about the loss to the Rockets in the comments at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast or over on Twitter @ClippersPod. We're going to be talking the La Murray Kawhi article for The Athletic coming up after some ads in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back into Clips and Dip. We talked about yet another bummer loss to the Rockets, which is gonna be getting over that one, still licking our wounds. But we got to talk about everyone's favorite subject. People ask us all the time; they want to know what's going on with Kawhi Leonard. We very rarely have any answers, but someone much closer to the situation than us, your favorite athletic beat writer, Law Murray, had a piece about Kawhi Leonard and the update. Charles, can you in one sentence describe us the update?
No update.
Okay, got it.
Status remains relatively the same. There was one key update, if you're into these things like I am. This taken from the article, which you should pay to read, said, though Leonard is still not at practice, which is one of the boxes that needs to be checked, the smoke towards his imminent return continues to thicken. It's to the point where Leonard has his hair in the tight, straight-back cornrows that he always plays with instead of the box plates that he has had for months.
Okay, that does seem like that actually does seem like a pretty key update.
I think it's more key than the bobblehead date or Bill Simmons Clippers guy, who I'm assuming was a man he just met on the street somewhere wearing Clippers hat.
My guy.
Yeah, that's my guy. That to me is probably the most damning of an update. Yeah, I think that's fair. Another thing from this piece, the Clippers are not committing to a return date for Leonard, which is in line with never releasing any kind of timeline for Leonard's return to play protocol.
But that's nothing new. Like, I don't blame the
Exactly.
org for that. Like, I there are things I blame this organization for. That's not one of them. Anything around Kawhi's like return timelines or health or anything like that, like that's something it's best to just mind your own business, you know?
I was like,
As
why
from an organization perspective.
Yeah.
Why would you give even a target date? Because if he goes through one exercise or finally does 5-on-5 and the knee swells up and now he can't go, why would you let that happen just to disappoint everyone? Oh, now he's not ready. Why on earth would that be a wise decision?
You think you're mad with a no return date now. Think how mad you would be if we got a return date and then they moved it. That's where
because of something they can't foresee.
Yes. And
not knowing is in no way worse than missing a proposed deadline. You know what I mean? Like an indefinite is maybe not the greatest outcome, but it's certainly a far better outcome than a missed deadline.
Yeah, I've been beaten across the head with the Kawhi return timelines for so long, and you have been if you've been a Clippers fan, that at this point, I just can't get upset about it. I'm just like, he's going to be back when he gets back. The org doesn't really say anything. Another piece from the article, because there's so much time off, Law Murray says, this week could be a critical step, a critical one to get Leonard up to speed. A return to practice is the crucial first step for Leonard to lose the week-to-week designation. That's also when Kawhi would address the public next. I don't really know what we would expect from Kawhi's first address to the public after practicing, but that's the marker here.
Maybe he'll be getting honest.
He starts grabbing the mic. He's grabbing mics, doing the interviews. But that's the key. The first practice is the step. That's what everyone should be looking for. Did Kawhi practice? He did some shoot around at practice the other day. They were not allowed to film, but
it is new, right? Having it even a wisp of it occur around the media. So I mean, that's got to be another. I mean, unless it's like the Golden State workout, I have no idea. But it seems like there's teasers. You know, there's Easter eggs out there for those searching.
There's kindling.
There is some sort of return coming at some point.
We're going to hear that he participated in limited time at practice. That's going to be the first thing we hear.
For sure.
And then you can start to get excited when you hear that the next day his knee responded well to it. Because just getting through a practice or playing one game really doesn't mean anything. It's about how his knee feels afterwards.
And like you said, 5-on-5. Like, well, how about we get the update the day after he plays his first 5-on-5 at practice, and then we'll go from there.
And he'll do the stay ready game. I'm assuming they'll have him do one of those after he practices. He'll probably do a stay ready game, which is the classic Clippers Ty Lue practice thing for a guy coming back. When Kawhi comes back, This article did mention also like kind of how easy, theoretically, Ty Lue thinks bringing Kawhi into this team is, which I don't think any of us would disagree with that, with how this team is playing and kind of what they're built on.
Yeah.
What is this team ceiling with Kawhi Leonard? Let's say, for all intents and purposes, he comes back not before Christmas, but either the first week of January or something like that. The standings are tight. Clippers are 6 right now. Will, what are you putting the Clippers ceiling at? All things considered with Kawhi Leonard. We do know it is our year, of course, but just give the fans something, what is the ceiling other than that? What's option B were they to somehow not win the championship this year?
Man, that's a tough one because everything is just so tight right now. I mean, I would say oof. Okay, with Kawhi Leonard, I think you could have I think at their absolute ceiling, you could stay out of the 4-5 matchup, which I think would be a great outcome. And that's the absolute peak. Like some things got to roll their way. But to get to 3, I think realistically with Kawhi, assuming like full health, obviously not playing back-to-backs, that sort of stuff, I think that you're still hovering in that 4-5 matchup.
Yeah.
If, assuming no other injuries and everything else, goes well. There and again, these are a lot of assumptions. These are my extreme optimist assumptions.
Joseph Rye Ward texted me. He said, I have a confession to make. I like this Clippers team. So that could be
Adam, you're shaking.
Maybe that's the curse.
I'm way off base.
No, Joseph is.
We love you, Joseph. Adam, where are you at on this team ceiling with Kawhi Leonard?
Well, I listened to the entire interview with Coach Lue on with Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to say this. I actually do put stock into Kawhi must be around the corner for him to come on with Stephen A. Smith right now during the season. He could have came on during the offseason. He could have came on after Kawhi left Team USA and tried to explain the side. I think with the stuff and all the junk that Stephen A. Smith has been talking, and he and Coach Lue are boys, I think Coach Lue wanted to come on when he could actually back it up and be like, hey, he's coming. Kawhi Leonard is playing. He's going to be playing. He said he gave a Charles Barkley, I guarantee that Kawhi Leonard is coming back. So that's out of everything with the bobblehead with Bill Simmons. I put the most stock into that, honestly.
Not the hair.
I don't think Coach Lue would show up with Stephen A. right now with the guy who's been hating on Kawhi the most, unless he felt like Kawhi's coming back soon. So I'm not going to have to hear from Stephen A. if, he's out for another 2 months or something like that after I just did an interview where I said Kawhi's coming back.
And I like that he defended Kawhi too. Like he was like, Kawhi wants to play. Like for some reason, there's still this group of people who think that Kawhi is like hanging out, loving life, not being able to play basketball for his team. So I thought that was nice. But sorry, to the ceiling question.
Yeah, you mentioned how Kawhi's been on the verge of tears, feeling like he's let the team down.
Yeah.
There was some heavy stuff in there. But Coach Lue answered a question about what basically the Clippers' ceiling is with Kawhi. And he said at least Western Conference Finals appearance. That's what Coach Lue said. So I'm going to go with that.
At least. Well, there's only one thing you can do more than that, which is go to the finals. So Ty Lue,
wise man.
Ty Lue's on that William Updike train. That this is our year train.
The ceiling is it's our year.
The floor, our year. Horrible square footage in this house.
Where the floor and ceiling meet.
Yeah. So I had them as a high play-in team with Kawhi out for however long he was going to be out. If he's coming back, and the team does look better than I would have thought they were going to look. We've talked about the rebounding. We've talked about actually still being committed to defense, all that good stuff. We're getting great shooting from Derek Jones Jr. Amir Coffey's playing great. Like all this good stuff is happening. Norm is on the best stretch of his career. But it just does. I think 4 or 5 is probably where they end up. I'm wondering. I want to say that I'm still waiting for like the Mavericks or the Rockets to convince me that they're top 4. But like, I mean, we've watched the Rockets beat us 3 times, so I guess they've already convinced me. But I just think, and with the no back-to-back thing, and with the other injuries, right? It's not my doubting Kawhi's ability to come into this team and elevate an already very good defense and elevate an incredibly, what's the word for the offense? Labor-intensive offense. I think Kawhi's going to come in and do that. But, I am a little worried about how's Harden going to hold up. What's Derek Jones Jr. going to look like? Because they have this time off, but they have some difficult games coming up that we're going to talk about. So I think that 4-5 spot is probably where they settle. I would love to have home court advantage at Intuit Dome for the playoffs because I can't imagine what that is going to be like for opposing teams this season. That's going to be really exciting. But then after that, it's like, hey, as long as we get in there, and if Kawhi is kind of peaking at the right time, let's make a bunch of noise in the playoffs, right? Like then I really believe in the chaos that would be the Clippers at that point.
Yeah, a lot of this confidence we have, I think, is just the state of the West, where even a team like the Houston Rockets, you're kind of like, are they really this good? They're young. They don't even have a guy averaging 20 points per game. Right. I don't fear them in a 7-game series with Kawhi.
Because you can give Kawhi the ball and say, please go score us 16 points this half or whatever.
I will say, I don't know that I'm like emotionally or mentally ready for a 4-5 Clippers Mavs face off. Mavs win just 1-7. They're 1-7 straight. They're looking scary as shit right now. I'm kind of tired of seeing this movie.
I think everyone would agree with you on that, man. I don't want to see that shit either.
And even though the Rockets have gotten the better of us with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, I guess I'd rather that in a 7-game series.
Wouldn't the Clippers have the 2 top guys in that series with Kawhi and James Harden? I think they would.
In the
over Luka and Kyrie?
No. Over Houston.
Over Houston, yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought you said over the Mavs. I was like,
absolutely. I think over the the gap is way further away versus the Rockets than it is for the Mavs for having the 2 best players for sure.
Who loses a series when you have the 2 top guys in the series? How can that happen?
Bro, what are you talking about?
Very simple answer. The Clippers lose that series.
I'm just saying, I think they have a lot of advantages against Houston in a 7-game series.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. Sure. I agree 100%.
Especially,
I don't want Dallas either.
No, I don't want Dallas. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And I mean, I love that point about Ty Lue talking with Stephen A. Smith because it is out of character, for Ty Lue to do any kind of interview like that during the season.
Well, people would naturally say, what do you mean? They're friends. Okay, he could have done the interview still at some point in October.
Or any other time. Yeah.
He could have done it all these different times since Team USA, and he didn't. And Stephen A. has been talking with a lot of wind in his jaws about Kawhi Leonard for a couple of years, saying that he should retire. So Coach Lue coming on now, I think it's because he knows he's coming back soon.
I do hope it is. I don't know if it's going to be the 27th, but just so Bill Simmons can be wrong by the slightest of margins, I would love it if he came back the 27th. Be great.
I don't know about the guys. December to me it seems so optimistic.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff.
I want to believe. I'm Spooky Mulder over here. I want to believe, but I'm just not seeing it.
He's got a lot of boxes to check between now and
I would not predict that he's going to be back for the bobblehead night game.
No, in 7 in a week.
Like, how does he ramp up that fast from where he's at currently?
Big ramp.
Yeah, it's steep.
Ramp.
It's very well. It's graduated. It's smooth.
Yeah, the ramp has been happening since day 1 of the season, so it's actually a really, really, really chill ramp. We'll see what happens. Let us know. There were a lot of comments underneath Law's Twitter post about how Kawhi would be back by the next game, which I don't think those people are right, because that game happens on Friday. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the upcoming schedule getting a little rough and just kind of more in-depth look at the West standings. Because I've seen people say the West is good, and I've seen people say the West is unimpressive. I'm not really sure what to think. We got all that coming up after some light audio ads in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in. It's Clips and Dip, episode 33 of season 3. I'm Adam Osland. We got Chuck Mockler and Will Updike here, and the Clippers do not play until Friday, where there was a rescheduled game after they didn't make the knockout round in the in-season tournament in Denver against the Nuggets. You can say
Still pissed about that.
The NBA screwing them again, but they also gave them the Utah Jazz Monday at home. So I feel like it's evened out. But it's not going to be easy, and I am really concerned about this game just because it's so hard to beat a team 3 times that's this good. And the Clippers have actually, maybe it goes against what I just said, they have beaten them 4 straight times going back to last season. But 3 times in the same year with Jokic playing this well and the game is in Denver, it's going to be a difficult one on Friday.
Yeah, they got that one on Friday, which is the 13th. I'm just now realizing. Then they have the Jazz. Then they have the Mavs on the 19th and the 21st. So we do get a bit of a playoff schedule against the Mavs coming up. Then the Grizzlies on the 23rd. And then a big standings battle with the Warriors on the 27th. So all of these games are pretty important standings-wise. And if you look at the West, the Clippers, as of this recording, and thank you to Google, hey, they're only 3 spots out of the 2 seed. Awesome. We love that. They are also only 2 games out of the 12 seed. I don't think they're getting down to 13 where the Blazers are, but they are 2 games out of the 12 seed. Is the West really good, or is the West mediocre, or are they good and just kind of winning the games where they can? Because this team already has thin margins, and the standings are not helping that scenario at all.
I think the West is good to very good. It's just not elite at the very top. It's not as top heavy maybe as the Eastern Conference is. But there's a lot of teams that are close to each other that are good to very good in the Western Conference, which makes it, I don't know, in some ways tougher because there are less nights where you run into a team that is just so bad you can't help but fall into a victory against. You know, the Utah Jazz are bad. The Blazers aren't that bad. They've had some decent
beat us.
San Antonio is improved. So, yeah, I don't overlook the West, but I also know that at the very top, they're missing, I don't know, a really flawless team. Even the OKC Thunder have a flaw, and that's inexperience, and they don't have Chet Holmgren right now for another 10 weeks or something like that. So,
damn.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I guess it depends on how you're looking at it, because to me, I would say the West is more difficult because of that. There's all these sort of teams that are good, that are kind of right at each other's throats, and like there are good teams in the East. Don't get me wrong, but there's like, you know, it's a far different hierarchy where there's like 2 teams that you're like, oh yeah, I could see them. You know, I could see them making noise in the playoffs, and then there's kind of everybody else who's like pretty good. And in the West, I feel like, you know, given injuries and stuff, it's more of it's not a complete coin flip, but it's like, you know, what would surprise you at this point in the West? Like,
well, so we look at it, the Spurs 12-12, they have a better record than the Kings. They're ahead of the Kings, so there's going to be some movement there, I would assume. Between one of those is going up, one of them's going down. Both of them going up really hurts the Clippers. The Lakers are 13-11, which you could argue is an overplay. They maybe have overplayed their record based on how things are going with that team. And then you have, this block of Rockets 16-8, Mavs 16-8, Grizzlies. Like that top is also, there's going to be a bunch of movement. Like, it's just taking, the longer it takes, I think, to like shake out is worse for the Clippers for this standing.
Yeah, you can make the argument, though, the other way. If they stay in this place where they go on a winning streak and they shoot up the standings because things are so tight, it's just the other side of that is they go on a losing
The
streak.
other side of that, yeah.
And you fall down the standings immediately, and the floor disappears underneath you. And if they lose to the Denver Nuggets, that's 3 straight losses, and now they're 14-12. Now, at worst, I would think they're going to end up at 15-12 by that Monday against the Utah
Sure.
Jazz.
Yes. Bit of a makeup.
But
yeah.
You mentioned the 2 games in Dallas, the Warriors coming up, the Memphis Grizzlies. So a really tough schedule in December. The more we see the days off in December and the more we see the schedule toughen up, the more confident I am in that they were always looking at the target date for Kawhi Leonard's return somewhere in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that January area.
Or even before the end of this month. I think the target date is, it's not one day, it's this window of time where if we could get Kawhi back here against some of these really tough teams in the West specifically, we weathered the storm without him, and then we get him back, and there's that extra jet fuel we need to get through the end of 2024.
Yeah, because I agree with that. I think they definitely had some kind of idea or wish. The thing that you were talking about, kind of if the floor falls out and they lose ground in the standings, it's not a team that's exactly built to make up ground quickly games-wise, right? They have a 5-game win streak. They have a 4-game win streak. But it's hard. As the season goes on, we have 17 games in March, which I've only brought up once every 2 episodes. It's hard for this. It would be hard for this team, I think, as of 6:31 p.m. on December 9th, to have some streak at the end of the year where they go from we went from the 6th seed, now we're up to the 4th seed or something like that. I don't know. And I also just have to see what the team looks like with Kawhi. I think they will be good, but I don't know. I don't have any red flags about injuries raised yet, but I'm cautious.
I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint of if Kawhi comes back and looks relatively close to where he was last season with them, that means against some of those upper echelon teams on those nights, they have a better chance to beat them. And there's even less of a chance that against some of the bottom teams that they jump up and beat them like we saw the Portland Trailblazers do, because that margin for error grows. And I'm not overly concerned that Kawhi is going to, I know some people have been talking about, what if he hurts us and, it messes up our rhythm.
That's crazy.
They're 24th offensively. How is he going to hurt them on the offensive end? And he's a 2-time defensive player of the year winner. How is he going to hurt him on the defensive end? I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see Kawhi hurting the team when he comes back to this team.
Even if he's at 80%, I don't see how he could hurt the team. That is a guy you need. They need exactly what he provides for them.
100%. Any final thoughts on the standings? Anything like that before we let these people go for the rest of their week? 4 whole days off until the next Clippers game?
No, enjoy the rest.
Hey, everybody enjoy the rest. James Harden, enjoy the rest. It's the holiday, so everyone else should enjoy the rest too. Any Kawhi updates that happen between now and the next game, we will have some content for you. Perhaps it's a live while I'm at work. We're going to have a post-game live hang after the Nuggets game, as well as probably an episode before that Nuggets game to talk. Maybe hopefully we'll have some clarity on the injuries to Amir and Derek Jones Jr. Will, if people wanted to, say during their end-of-year review, score some points with their boss and suggest some really great Clippers podcasts to listen to, who should they suggest and where could they tell their boss to listen to that podcast?
Oh yeah, look intelligent, influence friends and people by telling them about Locked On, by telling them about Clips and Dip, which you can check us out over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the best way though is over on youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. So however you consume this thing, we appreciate you.
We absolutely do. And before we send you out, Adam, from your car, one positive thing for these Clippers fans before our episode on Thursday.
I think it's that these injuries, if you have to have them, they're probably coming at the right time because they got 4 more days off. James Harden now will have played by the time they get to the Denver game. He'll have had 8 days off.
Yeah.
This was another All-Star break. And I didn't see it coming when I looked at the schedule heading into this season. But this could be a real blessing for a team that's getting to 30% of the way through the season mark, that they can have this much time off to get rejuvenated, to get right, especially with James Harden and all he's been asked to do, so that you don't hit the wall later in the year when you have 17 games going for you in March that you have to get through somehow. And maybe there's, some real pieces of the puzzle finally coming together with Kawhi, because they actually have a chance to practice right now. He has to practice as part of the ramp up. So it makes sense that everybody is, seeing the smoke from Kawhi Leonard and why he could be coming back at this point. There's a lot of rationale telling you that, yes, it makes a lot of sense that Kawhi could be in the next 2 weeks here.
And the thing that makes the most sense, as we know, is the change in hairstyle. All right, we will be back with y'all on Thursday, if not before, pending some news. Thank you for hanging out. And as always, let's go Clips.